الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب السماوات والأرض رب العالمين، وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله أمين على وحده. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وانظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, all praise and glory and thanks are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have من Allah. And we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our needs, for guidance, for health, for protection, for forgiveness, and for provision. As Ibrahim alayhi salam told his people, فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقَ. فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقَ. Seek your provision from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, when we come on Jumu'ah to practice something that Muslims should do whenever they get together, which is tawasi bil-haqq wa tawasi bil-sabr, to remind one another of our duties and obligations and the truth, and then also to strengthen one another to follow the truth and do what we need to do. And in general, our purpose in this life, actually it's not even our purpose, the purpose of every human being in this life is to be happy and to be successful. That's what people wake up in the morning to do, and that's what people work hard to achieve. People want to be happy and successful in this life. But most people don't seem to be happy, even as they are trying very hard. And sometimes even when they have the means, some people have all the means, they have a lot of money, still they don't find that happiness and peace of mind and tranquility. And for those who are money worshippers or obsessive with money, actually money replaces one type of stress with another that is sometimes even worse. It replaces the stress of poverty with the stress of calculations and obsession with money. That's why a lot of times you see people who have less, sometimes they're happier. And the reason for that is that content, that qana'ah, rida. People are accepting or are satisfied with what they have. Now don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that Islam encourages poverty. That's not true. Anybody who tells you this, that's not true. Islam wants believer to be strong and wants you to be as rich as you can, so that you can do more fi sabilillah. But the key here is for money to remain tool and never become an obsession. For money to become always in your hand, not in your heart. As one scholar once said, he was asked, can a rich person, very rich person, can still be zahid, pious? He said yes, as long as the money is in his hands and is not become obsessed with it, then he can. And we know some of the great companions, they were very rich. Uthman ibn Affan was very rich. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was very rich. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was very rich. And that did not take away from their iman. So it should always remain as a means for what? Means to take care of your needs and your family needs, but also to do more fi sabilillah. That's what happened when some of the companions came to the Prophet ﷺ. They were sad. They told him, we want to do more fi sabilillah, but we don't have the means. So those who are rich are in better position than us because they can donate, they can do charity, we cannot. And the Rasul ﷺ made it clear that Allah will hold people responsible according to what He gives them. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما أتاها. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Now this is for people in general. For Muslims, for us, not only we want to be happy and successful in this life, but also we want to be happy and successful in the hereafter. So we want the full package. We want to be فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever was saved from hellfire and admitted to heaven is a winner. So we want to be among the winners on the day of judgment. Now the good news is that Islam guarantees both. And anybody who tells you that you need to choose between this life and the hereafter is not accurate. Is not telling you the truth. I mean, it might be out of good intention, but there is no such thing in Islam that you need to sacrifice this life so that you will be a good Muslim or focus on the hereafter. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be happy in this life and in the hereafter, wants you to be successful in this life and in the hereafter. So the good news is that all Islam brings it or offer it as a package, and it has only one key. There is only one key that will guarantee you all this package of happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter, and that is what? That is pursuing the Ridwan Allah. Pursuing the Ridwan Allah. I'm going to use the Ridwan Allah because I don't like the translation to Ridwan Allah means seeking that Allah will be pleased with you. Don't want to translate it into the pleasure of Allah. I don't think that's very appropriate or accurate. So let us all get used to this word, Ridwanullah. Ridwanullah meaning that you're doing your best to ensure that Allah is pleased with you. That Allah pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Why this is the key? Because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us in this life and in the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unlike what some people say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves people, loves us and loves the best for us. So He wants us to be happy and successful, both in this life and in the hereafter. And He gave us the guidance to achieve this goal, so that we can again achieve those goals, both in this life and in the hereafter. So when you are pursuing Ridwanullah, if you are really sincere and when you're driving, you plug the address and then you follow it. If your address or your destination is Ridwanullah and you pursue it, you will find yourself achieving those goals, both in this life and inshallah you will find it in the hereafter. Quran tells us this. Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created these hearts says, ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. These hearts, they find peace and tranquility in the remembrance of Allah. And it is exclusive. الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Those who have faith and whose hearts find peace in the remembrance of Allah, truly, it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace. This is something that people are so desperate for it nowadays. That peace of mind and tranquility. People they are struggling to get to sleep, and they are struggling all the time. They get taking medicine and taking pills, etc., to find that peace of mind. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us where to find it. الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. The more connected to Allah you are, the more peace of mind you will find. The closer you are to Allah, the more peace of mind and tranquility you find. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirms this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides people. If you pursue His Ridwan, you will find yourself pursuing your happiness and peace of mind and tranquility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام. يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a light قد جاءكم من الله نور والكتاب المبين يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام. A light has now come to you from Allah. Nur will show you the way. The light has come to you from Allah. And scripture, Quran, making things clear, clarifying any ambiguity, any tension, any confusion, making things clear, with which Allah guides to the ways of peace. You can translate that happiness, tranquility, etc. Allah guides with the Quran to the way of peace, but guides whom? Guides those who pursue His Ridwan. With which Allah guides to the ways of peace, those who follow what pleases Him. Those who follow what pleases Him, Allah will guide them. That's promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will guide them to the ways of peace, bringing them from darkness into light. يهدي الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام. Now the question is, the big question is how? How can we do that? How can we pursue Ridwanullah so that we pursue our own happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter? And by the way, that's the happiness that Islam promises is a true one, genuine. It is independent of your conditions. It is an inner phenomenon. It doesn't depend on whether you have a job or not. It doesn't depend on whether you are rich or not. It's something from within, not from without. It's not coming, it doesn't depend on the circumstances. It is because of that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is true, genuine happiness, and it is lasting. It does not fluctuate with the circumstances. Now, how can we pursue Ridwanullah? Number one is to make Ridwanullah your ultimate goal and your guiding priority in life, and never take it for granted. Again, you pledge or you commit to pursue or your ultimate goal and your guiding priority. Guiding priority means what you use to make a decision. What do you use to make a stand? What's your reference? It should be what is the more pleasing to Allah. The action that is arda lillah, that's the one that you do. So to make your goal and be sincere with this, that your ultimate goal, your guiding priority, al-awlawiyya al-hakima, will be Ridwanullah. Whatever helps you in that direction, you're going to go for it. Whatever distracts you, you're going to avoid it. That's the first thing that you need to do. And never take it for granted. That's unfortunately the mistake that many Muslims make. They take that for granted. People have that feeling, because I'm praying, because I'm fasting, because I'm not drinking, because etc. Allah must be pleased with me and then I'm okay. That should never be the case. You are struggling in this life to increase your chances of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being pleased with you. None of us has received already that news. None of us was told that yes, Allah is, no, we don't know. We don't know which deeds was accepted. We don't know which sins were forgiven. We don't know. But we know, number one, there is hardly anything that we can do to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough. So we always have to push our limits. And number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do everything we can. And none of us can claim that. None of us can claim that you are already there. There is always a gap between what you are doing fi sabilillah and what you can do, what you are capable of doing. And your job is to try always to close that gap. Always try, every day, try to reduce that gap even with 1 inch. Right? So that should be the attitude and the spirit, is that I know there is a standard that I cannot reach, but I'm going to do everything I can in my life to get closer and closer to that standard. The standard is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's our standard for ibadah, for worship. That's our standard for akhlaq. That's our standard for serving Allah and His cause. So, make that your ultimate goal, your guiding priority. You have choices to make. You choose the one that is more pleasing to Allah, even if it is not convenient. Even if the other choice is convenient or more convenient, you go for, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us who is the best in deeds. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Always remember that we are in competition. We are in competition. Who is the best? That's one. And number two, we're racing against the clock. We don't know how much time is left. So we always should be pushing our limits and pushing ourselves and having that sense of urgency. You can do something today, don't postpone until even this afternoon. Whenever you can do something, whenever an opportunity presents itself, jump on it. Because you never know whether it's going to happen, that opportunity is going to come back, or whether there is even more time left. So that's starting point. You make that as your ultimate goal, and you always resist the temptation that I'm already there. None of us is already there. Until we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we are told that we made it, then we're going to have to keep pushing ourselves and pushing our limits. Now, more specifically, how this can be done practically. After making that commitment to Ridwanullah is your compass. That's your destination. This can be done at 2 levels. If you want to be more specific, at 2 levels. One is general, and that's probably the one that we're going to focus on today. And one specific, more specific, comes down to even the daily action that we do. So how can we pursue Ridwanullah, which will guarantee us, inshallah, happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter? When it comes to the general level, number one is to work on your iman and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To work on your iman and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iman, my dear brother and sister in Islam, it's not a one-time deal. It's not pass or fail. It's not believer or non-believer. Iman, it's a process. It's a process of strengthening it, increasing it, maintaining it, otherwise it will deteriorate. And it becomes an obsolete. So Iman, it is not that I'm believer, so I'm done. No, you're not. When you decide to become a Muslim, you start your journey. And what is that journey? We're going to talk about it in more details, but you have to know that your Iman needs work, continuous work. Number one, even to maintain it. Just to maintain it, because you don't maintain it, it deteriorates. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Iman deteriorates. Inna al-Iman la yabla kama yabla thawb. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the Iman tends to wear out with time. It's like anything, but if you don't maintain it, it deteriorates. So, number one, to maintain it. Number two, to strengthen it. To strengthen it and hopefully reach the level of ihsan. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. That you will worship Allah as if you see Him. That you are always with Allah. That you are always mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That should be the level that you want to reach. So, no one should feel that your Iman is good enough and it doesn't need any work or doesn't need any improvement, and that applies to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, how this can happen? How can we work on our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and on our iman? When it comes to the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's two parts. One is knowledge and one is love. Ma'rifatullah and mahabbatullah, wa hubbillah. Now, to bring the idea closer, you cannot have a strong relationship with someone you don't know. You don't know very well. You cannot please someone you don't know very well. You don't know what they like, what they don't like. You may do something out of good intention and they are offended. That's a relationship between a human being. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. You cannot be serious in pleasing Allah if you don't know Him. If you don't know Him very well. So that becomes a requirement. Becomes a requirement to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it's very related. Again, we accept that logically. You cannot please someone you don't know very well. You cannot please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you don't know Him very well. That will give you the direction. Knowledge gives you direction. The more you know about Allah, the more you know how to please Him. You know what He likes, what He does not like, what brings you closer to Him. Quran is full of verses in which Allah praises some category of people and say that He is pleased with them, and then will tell you what they are doing. That's what you need to check yourself against when you read the Quran. Quran is full of verses that tells us about people whom Allah likes and pleased with them, and people with whom Allah is not pleased. So in reading and studying the Quran can give you that knowledge, because Quran is mostly about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a book that is in which, in most part of the Quran, Allah is telling us about Himself in different ways, direct and indirect. So that's knowledge. Now that will give you the direction, but then you need that vibrant spirituality, that love of Allah to give you the energy. Because you may have the right direction. You may know what pleases Allah, but you don't have the motivation and the energy to do it. Where this motivation and energy is going to come from, again, we go back to the power of love. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than anything else, you'll be thinking of Him all the time. You will be thinking about what is it that they can do to please Him. What is it that they can do to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with you. And you know, when you love someone so much, you'll be thinking of that person all the time. And you'll be thinking about what you can do to make that person happy. Again, we use this example to bring the idea closer. But وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. When you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you love Him more than anything else, including yourself, you will find the beauty of Iman as Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised. أَنْ يَكُونَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَحَبَّ إِلَيْهِ مِمَّا سِوَاهُ. These are the people who will find the beauty, will taste the beauty of Iman, that for them, Allah and His Messenger is more beloved to them than anything else, including themselves. Now that's one aspect, one major aspect of relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also there are other aspects. The relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is multidimensional. It's not even 3D. It's multidimensional. There is love, there is shukr, thankfulness and gratitude. There is tawakkul, relying on Allah, putting your trust in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is reverence, ta'zeem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is haya. There are so many aspects of that relationship. All of them, they need work. They need work to be developed. So, how can you do that? How can we work? We took it as a chain work. We're pursuing our happiness and success in this life and in the after. We said the key is Ridwanullah. Make Ridwanullah as your ultimate goal and never take it for granted. Then we said this requires knowledge of Allah and working on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But more practically, how can we do that? The key to this is to study the Quran. And I mean to say study, not read. Reading the Quran is not enough. Studying the Quran. Quran is a book of guidance. It is not meant to be read for barakah. It's not like how many pages and how many words, so how many hasana I collected today. So that's a very poor relationship with the Quran. It wasn't meant to be like this. It's a book of guidance. You read it, you study it for guidance. You're looking for direction. Direction where? Direction to Ridwanullah and the Jannah. That's what Quran has. Quran has the direction. So you should go to the Quran, study it for guidance. Inshallah, you'll get the rewards. You don't need to worry about it. That's going to come. But your purpose is guidance. Looking for guidance. Remember, يَهْدِي بِهِ اللَّهُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ رِضْوَانَهُ سُبُلَ السَّلَامِ. Those who are pursuing Ridwanullah, Quran will guide them to the ways of peace. Studying the Quran for guidance and direction to Ridwanullah. Quran will help you getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very well. If you study the Quran and you have a regular session with the Quran, you will find your knowledge of Allah is increasing daily. And your love of Allah and your relationship with Him is also increasing and strengthening daily. There is no more effective way than studying the Quran to achieve this. So, pledge, if you didn't have this habit, try to acquire it, which is to have a time for the Quran on daily basis. Hopefully, and it doesn't matter how much you cover, because it doesn't go by quantity. It's how much you learn and you apply. So one verse can affect your life and your behavior more than reading many pages without understanding. So, لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this Quran is meant for people to reflect and contemplate, not just to read. لِيَدَّبَّرُوا. تَدَبُّر. You read, you stop, you search the meaning of the word. It's like what any good student does with a textbook. Have you seen students just reading the textbook, preparing for exam? No. They study the textbook. And Muslims should do the same, and everybody can do this. Regardless of how much Islamic knowledge you have, regardless of anything, everybody can do this if you put the effort. People learn things that are much more complicated than Quran. People learn very complicated specialty in medicine, in engineering, etc. They were not born with it, but they put the effort and they were able to master it. You can do the same thing with the Quran, and you should do it. So, you study the Quran to get to know Allah and to pursue the direction to find out what is it that will please Allah, will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with you or not. And as I mentioned, Quran is full of verses that gives you this direction. Allah praises a category of people and tell you what they are doing. Check yourself against those people. Quran will curse category of people and then will tell you what they are doing. Check yourself against those criteria. That's it. It's not very difficult. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, successful are the believers. If you are reading the Quran properly, then you start, say, let me find out what these people are doing so that Allah said about them successful. Because that's what I'm looking for. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those who concentrate during their prayers. Wait a minute. How is my prayer? How is the quality of my, etc. And that applies to the rest of the verses. And that's how you should be approaching the Quran. If you do that, if you study the Quran on a regular basis with the purpose of guidance will help you knowing Allah, will increase your iman, will give you better, clear direction to Ridwanullah, will make your iman vibrant. There is a dormant iman and vibrant iman. There is iman that mobilizes people. And there is an iman that is dormant. So it turns your iman into a vibrant iman, vibrant faith, and will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more beloved to you than anything else. That's a promise from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man arafa Allah ahabba. Rasul ﷺ promised that the more you get to know Allah, the more you love Him. So you study the Quran, you get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you find yourself loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more and more. Thinking of Him all the time, or most of the time, and mindful of Him. Because that's the whole idea of taqwa. The better translation of taqwa is not fear of Allah. The better translation of taqwa is mindfulness, conscious that you are connected to Allah and you are remembering Him and you are feeling, realizing that Allah, aware that Allah is with you wherever you are. That's the word, the better translation of taqwa than just fear. So being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that you will try it and you will see the kind of happiness that you will find in your heart, and peace and tranquility. That is something that you cannot buy, purchase with money. The true, genuine happiness cannot be purchased by money. As I said, it is something that is from within. Number two, so number one is to make the Ridwan Allah as your ultimate goal and your guiding priority, and then try to pursue Ridwan Allah through the study of the Quran. Number two, or still at the general level, is to know and to remember all the time, always, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you for a specific purpose. That you were not created in vain. أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا? Do you think that you were brought to this life just like that? وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تَرْجَعُونَ? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ? Do you think that you were created in vain with no purpose? Remind yourself, remind one another that we are here, we have a job to do. It's like when you are hired in a company, there is a job description and there are expectations. If you don't fulfill them, you find yourself out of the job. You were created, there is a job to fulfill. And if you don't fulfill it, then Allah will not be pleased with you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to perform a specific job that you need to understand it very well and to fulfill it to the best of your abilities. And again, never take it for granted. Never think that I already know it, because that's not true. And never think that you're already doing it, because that's not true either. Again, it's not a decision, it's a maximization. You maximize, you try to do a better job every day. So never think that you already know it, and never think that you are already fulfilling that job. This job or this mission is explained in the Quran in several ways. And inshallah we'll spell out the different ways Quran tells us about our job in life, our mission. It is the job of prophets, so it is something very noble to do. You should be very thankful to Allah that gave you the honor to do His work. So doing the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's an honor. It's a great responsibility, but also it is great honor. It is the job of all prophets who were just sent as messengers to deliver the message and show us how to do that job, how to fulfill that job. So the job that Rasul has done, it is not his job, his exclusive job. It is the job of every believer. Rasul was sent to tell us about it and to show us how to do it. But then it became the job of every believer to try to do it with the same level of dedication like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is described in several ways in the Quran, and inshallah we'll come back and spell out and talk about the details of this mission. But there are some key elements that inshallah I will mention today, and key elements or component of that job and key words that you need to be aware of and inshallah we'll come back and talk in more details about what is our job in life and what is expected from us. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, one key word in our mission, our job in life is called tazkiyah. قد أفلح من تزكى. قد أفلح من زكاها. We're talking about success. Quran tells us success is through the self-development. Tazkiyah meaning work on yourself to be better. To be better in everything. Work on your worship, work on your relationship with Allah, work on your character, work on your knowledge, work on your skills, work on your health, work on your roles as a spouse and as parents. Work to be a better version of yourself. That's what will make Allah pleased with you. To see you every day better than yesterday. That today you learned something new and you implemented it. That made you a better person. That's what will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with you. Tazkiyah. And then there is same word in Arabic, but it applies to doing it for others. Tazakka, قد أفلح من زكاها. And then the Quran says, يزكيهم. Which is what? Which is helping people around you become also better individuals. That's a key component of our job. You become a better person. As you're doing that, you try to uplift people around you. How do you do that? You do it by example, number one. And number two, by compassion. الإنسان عبد الإحسان, by helping people and serving them, etc. And number three, by sharing the knowledge that you already gained and applied. Sharing it. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. With the good advice, sharing knowledge, helping people, starting with your family, immediate family, but everybody around you, helping by sharing the good advice, sharing piece of information. ادعو ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير. Anything that can help people in this life and in the hereafter, it is called da'wah ila al-khayr, or inviting people to that which is good. And by the way, that's the job of the Prophet ﷺ. Quran says, yuzakkihim. Rasul ﷺ, that's what he was doing to his people. Teaching, mentoring, uplifting, helping people around him become better people. The other key word is called islah. And that translates into making this world a better place. Find a way every day to do something that will make this world a better place. Now, this world might be big, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for your immediate circles. Find a way every day to do something that will make this world a better place. More just, more free, more secure, more prosperous. Anything that you can do, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants justice to prevail and assigned us the job to make it happen. And that applies to all other maqasid or ultimate purposes. Find out what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, and then try to maximize your contribution. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا توفنا وتراضى عنا واخلص الصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها خير أيامنا من القاك وارحم والدينا كما ربنا صغارا وارحم موتانا جميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك من الظالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. الله أكبر.